Hey guys, it's Dennis here, and we've got a special video for you today. We're doing the Avengers spoilers review. Remember, there's a spoiler, so if you haven't finished the game, we're going to be talking all kind of story points and all that kind of stuff. Joining us, back with us, Caboose. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, Dennis. I'm glad to be back talking games with Collider. And yeah, let's talk some Avengers.
Yeah, this is a game that you and Dorian had seen the reveal event at E3 two
That's
years
right.
ago. Yeah, it was
That's
about
right.
two
Was it
years
two
ago.
or is it a year? Was it 2019?
It was 20. Oh, maybe yeah, it was 29, a year and a half
Yeah,
because
yeah, just about.
we skipped E3 this year because there's no E3 this year. So
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
year and a half, a lot of hype and also a lot of controversy coming out of that, especially with the
yeah. Yes.
graphics, and they've been improving that. Now that we've come down to it, the game's come out, you've beat it, you've played it. What are your kind of overall thoughts?
I mean, I probably like the game more than most people out there, more than most critics out there
Mm-hmm.
do. But I also don't love the game as some
Mm-hmm.
critics do. Like I am very much in that middle of the road. There are a lot of things that I like. Many people out there are not a big fan of the whole Destiny qualities that the game has.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's some of the best stuff for me. Creating a build for my character and getting the gear and using the different abilities that come from the gear. All that stuff is actually really fun for me, but I understand why that just is a negative for most. And I think the one thing that I'm glad to see that most people do agree on is that it's a really solid story mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the one thing leading into Avengers that I kept saying. Everyone was like, "Are you worried? Are you what are your expectations?" And for me, it was like, listen, all the multiplayer stuff, microtransactions, this, that,
Mm-hmm.
and the other. With time, that stuff can improve with player feedback. With all that stuff, with the Reddit, there's a big subreddit community right now for the game. All that stuff can improve. But if the story mode from the get-go isn't good, if it doesn't land, then I feel like we could end up seeing another Anthem scenario for this game. But I feel like the story does land. It may not be like 10 out of 10 amazing, and there are definitely some missions in the story that are completely uninspired, but the narrative throughout kept me engaged enough to make me feel like, okay, I enjoyed my time with this. I'll sink in a couple more hours to see what I can do with creating some builds for these characters. And now I'm looking forward to seeing what new story content they want to add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said in our non-spoiler review with Dorian, I said I like the game. I like some parts a lot. I don't love it. Yeah, the story-wise, it's solid. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like Last of Us Part 1, Part 2 level.
Right. Right.
And then the combat is fun and entertaining, but it's not like Ghost of Tsushima like deep. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
kind of like not the best of either one, but you're pretty good, and you've got me enough. And you speak of uninspired missions. That's kind of my biggest gripe with the game is the middle section of the story mode, where
Yes.
like it's very like samey, a lot of same missions, a lot of same level looking and combat and whatnot. And I really enjoyed the last about probably 3 hours of the game. Like once you go, since this is spoilers, once you go save Cap,
Yeah.
and Cap gets in there, then you start getting these missions and these levels that actually feel different from each other, and
Yeah.
you use different abilities and different characters. That's like when I'm like, oh, they saved all the good stuff for the last 3-4 hours. I wish that
They
had
really
happened through the
did.
whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much for me, it's like once we get introduced to maybe Black Widow, but more towards like when we get introduced to Thor, like
Mm-hmm.
from then onward, I really was starting to dig the story. It's just that leading up to that point, yeah, that middle portion is there's a big lull. It's honestly, you can kind of compare this movie to like an Avengers movie. You look at something like Avengers 2, where the beginning is this crazy
Mm-hmm.
action, amazing dialogue, good character interaction. Then the middle is like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And then there's the big action set piece at the end. And that's kind of what happens with the game
Mm-hmm.
is it acts like a blockbuster movie. Has a huge opening with A-Day and all that fun stuff that takes place there. Massive lull period in the
Mm-hmm.
middle, and then a grand finale that's really on an epic scale. That final boss battle against MODOK is amazing.
Yeah, that's what I liked about. Okay, so with MODOK, I'm trying to count up how many actual boss battles were there. 4? I'm counting 4. Like I have Warbot,
Yep.
Warship,
Yep.
Abomination, and then MODOK at the end. Was there anything
Taskmaster at the
else?
beginning,
Okay.
and then the one against Monica where you're playing as Black Widow. But honestly, in terms of named villains, there's really only 2. Like
Yeah.
that's my biggest complaint about Marvel's Avengers is even after you beat the game, you don't get to like fight MODOK again in some fun way. Like you get that really amazing boss battle with all those crazy mechanics. Switching, you play as every single Avenger through that last mission, which is awesome. And that's pretty much the only boss battle in the game that isn't just hit the enemy until they die. You know,
Yeah,
like that's the one that actually has mechanics.
Yeah, that's was the most fun because they had different ways of how you had basically you fought MODOK like I don't know how many 3-4 times, and each character had to take him out in a different way, and that was the creativity that I wish was throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, no, it's seriously lacking in boss battles, and it's also just weird the way they introduce some characters. Like, why is Abomination working with AIM? What's the reason?
I have no clue.
You know,
I thought he was going to come back. Did you think he was going to come back? Because he had he didn't die, and then he had that one cut scene with MODOK and Monica, and then I was expecting him to show up at the very end, like before you fight MODOK, but you know.
Yeah, like you get to fight him and Taskmaster a bunch through the multiplayer stuff, but even those boss battles, they're worse than the way that they set them up in the story. Because at least in the story, the Abomination boss battle, like with Hulk, you're in this crazy environment, explosions everywhere. It feels like an epic battle between these two titans. And then the Taskmaster boss battle, it's like that tutorial one to teach you about the game a little bit. So it's engaging in that way. But then once you get to fight them after the fact and you do those villain sectors, it's just punch. Just punch them until they die. They do a couple of things here and there to mix it up, and that's it. There is no like variety. There was nothing to keep you engaged. There were sometimes I would be Captain America, and because the villains would be so overpowered and can kill you in one hit, I just sit in the back and throw shields all day until the enemies were dead. And that's boring. Like, it's not fun. And I wish if we got just at least one more boss fight in the game that was like the MODOK fight, I probably would have bumped up my score a little bit. But yeah, that's the one biggest complaint that I had towards the whole story campaign is a real lack of big set pieces with the boss battles.
How did you find each individual character with their different abilities and special moves and upgrading your skill tree? How did you find that part?
Yeah, no, that was cool. I liked the skill tree aspect to it. I've already been having a lot of fun like figuring out different builds for characters. Like I'm currently working on a War Machine build for Iron Man. Like focuses on the rockets and all that stuff. And that's one of the most fun parts of the game for me, honestly. Is messing around with those abilities and trying to figure out the way to min-max your character. That stuff is really fun. And I do feel a lot of variety between all 6 characters. I think that's one thing I can praise the game about a lot is that each character is not the same to one another. They all play extremely different from one another with only some small similarities, in the way that you have the flight for Iron Man and Thor. When Thor inevitably unlocks an ability to shoot his lightning while he's flying, it's very similar to the lasers for Iron Man. But those are they're few and far between. You don't get like a crazy amount of similarity. It's to the point where if I'm playing as Thor and I go through his whole build and level him up to 50, max out his skill tree, he's going to feel like a completely different character to what Iron Man would feel like maxed out at level 50 with a full skill tree unlocked. So I like that.
Who was your favorite character to play with?
Captain America. That's the one. That's the one I was dying to play as in the full game. I played the 8A demo like 10 times in the beta just to play as the Captain America section. And he's the one I've had the most fun with for sure.
I think he's my second favorite. I think Hulk is still my favorite just because I love using him to smash people and his abilities, like his rage abilities. And then speaking of the demo, I think especially for people who played the demo, because I was just kind of looking at the whole, because I have I record the whole game.
Right.
Another issue is if you had played the demo, it actually was kind of the best of the first. It was only the demo was probably like 2 hours long or 2.5 hours long or something
for
like
the
that.
story content, yeah.
But actually, story wise, it was where you end up is about 4 hours into the game because they cut out a lot of these pieces with Kamala Khan that you didn't play, which some of like the whole stealth thing at the park or whatever, Heroes Park, whatever. It was that was not fun. It just slowed things down. But anyways, so if you had played the demo and you'd gotten to X amount in the storyline, you had to play 4 hours into the game to get to the same place that you were before. There was some new stuff, obviously, in the mix, but I think that also contributed to the lull in the beginning because you're just like, oh, I've already played this part, and then you kind of have this lull in the middle, and then you have the fantastic ending.
That's a good point because there's quite a few story missions that they threw into the beta, and it was almost to their detriment. Like for the time, it's like, wow, look at all this stuff they're giving us as like a demo, pretty much. That's awesome. But then you play the full game, and you're like, okay, let's get through these missions. Like I've already seen this stuff. Like, come on, let's get through this. So yeah, I agree. I was very bored during the beta missions because at that point I had played them 3 times because I played it on Xbox, I played the beta on PC, I played the beta on PlayStation. So I had done those missions 3 times and I was already sick of them. So the 4th time around in the full game, I was like, please, just let me skip through this. Come on.
Well, I was hoping, getting the full copy that they would have just like skipped you to where you left off in the demo, but now playing it, they can't because you missed all this Kamala Khan stuff. I mean, that's a part of a strength I liked was I liked the Kamala Khan character and seeing her journey from A to A, being a fangirl and then developing into a hero, and really this story is about her and her.
She's the protagonist.
Getting in touch with her, not just her abilities, but her heroic nature and doing things for others. And she's kind of the linchpin to like get the Avengers back together.
Right. Yeah. So I interviewed Scott Amos, the studio head at Crystal Dynamics, a long time ago. And I remember asking him because there was stupidly so a bit of controversy surrounding the idea that Kamala Khan was the protagonist. So I just wanted to ask him, I was just curious, was this always the plan? Was Kamala Khan supposed to be the lead character from the get-go? And he said, yes. When we were initially pitching the game, that was the idea that we landed on. And you can see, I mean, if you go back to the reveal trailer, when it was called the Avengers Project, that's Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, who's given that little speech when it's showing off the Avengers weapons like Captain America's shield and Thor's hammer and stuff. So yeah, clearly from the start, they wanted Kamala to be the main character, and you can see that she's the one who's the most fleshed out in the story. And I think they represent her well. They showcase her character well. The fangirling can get a little annoying sometimes, yeah. But overall, I was in line with the character. I liked what they did. I liked the writing and her progression through the story in becoming an Avenger. I thought was a really cool and natural progression for the character.
Yeah, and she has a purpose. She is the POV character. She's the entry-level character. She's who we are supposed to be. We're supposed to be the ones fanboying, fangirling over the Avengers if we were part of this team. I mean, in movies, they do it all the time. You have POV. For example, something like Inception, right? We think of Leonardo DiCaprio, right? He's the star of Inception. But the POV character is actually Ellen Page's character. She's the one who comes into the world and learns all about all that stuff, and that's kind of Kamala Khan's purpose in this game. And so and she has a relationship with her father, which we come for full circle at the end. I guess another criticism is there's certain characters you don't get to play that much with in the story mode. Like
Thor gets 2 playing like missions, including his bit at the very end of the game.
Yeah. Thor, you really don't. Yeah, you don't really get to play much with him.
Crazy.
I mean, you get to Captain America later, but he plays a pivotal role. As soon as you get him, he plays a pivotal role.
Yep.
At the end.
Yeah. And I guess in talking about Miss Marvel as well, just talking about these characters in general, I think another great thing that I can praise about the game is the performances are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the voice actors are great. Jeff Shine as Captain America, I think, like completely, perfectly embodies the character. Obviously, Sandra Sad as Kamala Khan, she's fantastic. And Troy Baker, I heard some people for some reason they were like, "Oh, I just kept hearing Joel," and Troy Baker was like, "Where?" Like,
Yeah, Joel has like a deep growled voice.
Yeah.
And how is that translating
I
to
was
what he's
so
doing?
confused.
Yeah.
And so I really loved Troy Baker in this game. I think what I really loved the most about his performance is he kind of leans into the aspect of, yes, Hulk is this raging monster. He's this loud, annoying, giant beast. But Bruce Banner is this very soft-spoken, very quiet, very awkward guy. And I love the way that Troy Baker was able to do that. And obviously, there's a lot of interaction between Bruce Banner and Kamala Khan.
Oh, yeah.
So those two actors, they bounce off each other extremely well throughout the entirety of the game. And when it comes to Nolan North as Iron Man, I feel like if you play the multiplayer and you're just roaming around with Iron Man, that's a little Deadpool. That's a little Nathan Drakey, you know? But like Nolan North in the story mode as Tony Stark from just the narrative standpoint, I think provides a really great performance as the character. The scene between him and Bruce at the what is it called, the Golden Acres, I think, when you first get introduced to Tony.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great scene. I love the performances there, and I really liked him throughout. He had some good jokes in there, some good wittiness, but he was also like, you know, he was serious, he was stern when he needed to be. And then, of course, for me, I think my favorite mission and some of my favorite scenes in the game is when you save Cap as Iron Man, and just the interaction between Iron Man and Captain America, I think is just great. And then Travis Willingham, he's voiced Thor before. He's done it in the cartoons, and I think it was Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Avengers Assemble, one or the other. But he's done Thor before, so he's just a natural fit for the character. He nails it.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about the performance?
Yeah, I think they were all really good. You know, obviously, the thing is, when E3 at that reveal where they had the 20-minute trailer or whatever, you have all these people who are watching it, and all they have in their minds are all the MCU voices and faces, right? I think because it's a video game, you can kind of get over the faces, right? Like Iron Man, if he doesn't look like Robert Downey Jr., that's fine. But it's the voice that I think throws people off because you're so used to the MCU voices. And I think it took people a while to get to it. And if you actually play the game for the entirety of it, you will start to get used to it and realize, oh, they're doing their own thing, right? There are, like, you know, hints and obviously inspirations from the MCU, but they also are taking
callbacks to it sometimes.
But they are also doing their own thing as well. And so I think once you get over that and then figure out, okay, these are similar to what we've seen before, but also a new thing as well. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, the way that I look at it is the same way that I would have looked at the Batman Arkham franchise, you know? Going into those games, I wasn't expecting to see like a Christian Bale Batman. And I actually loved the way that Rocksteady was like, no, we're going to just take the entire cast from the animated series and use that for this game. I thought that was great. And you kind of get a bit of that flavor. Like I said, Travis Willingham, who's voiced the character of Thor before in animated shows. I don't think the rest of the cast had done anything in regards to the characters they portray in this game beforehand, but they all sound like they would be coming out of an Avengers cartoon. They sound like essentially the comic book versions of these characters, where the MCU is very much its own thing. It's brand new. You know, like Bruce Banner Hulk in the MCU is completely different in tone and character than the way you would normally see the character portrayed in the comic books. And like I said, or like you said, the way that they're trying to do this game is their own thing. But obviously, they wanted to take a little more inspiration from the comic books than they would have the movies.
And then what'd you think of the mid-credit scene at the end, basically teasing either post launch content, or do you think it's for a sequel?
So you're talking about the Scientist Supreme stuff with Monica? Yeah. So it looks like that's actually leading right into the Kate Bishop DLC in October.
Okay.
Because Monica's going to have some involvement there. So I'm guessing It has to do with some DLC, and then it's the post credit scene that I'm very interested about. But to rewind a second, because I need to talk to more people about this, because there's this moment, there's this kind of throwaway line when the Kree Sentry comes out of the ocean, where Tony is talking to Cap, and he says, in speaking about MODOK, he says, "I don't think that gem in his head is just for looks." And so I was like, did MODOK have an Infinity Gem? Did he have the Power Gem? What was going on there? But then again, he would be like way more powerful if that was the case. Like he would be destroying the Avengers. He wouldn't need no Kree Sentry. Yeah. So I don't know what the hell that was about, what that line was supposed to be. But then, you get the Kree Sentry, that was a crazy surprise in the story. I thought it was a Sentinel at first for a second, and then he said it was a Kree Sentry. I was like, hold on, what? But a call back to the comics, the Kree are the ones who kind of make the Inhumans. So that was a good way to bring it full circle. And I don't know what the hell was going on with that post-credit scene, but I'm guessing it's teasing Captain Marvel.
So I'm kind of glad, though, that you're saying, though, that mid-credit scene is more for the DLC, because I kind of it's not like I'm sick of it, but it's like I want to see whatever the next game is to branch off and do a different story that has nothing to do with AIM or MODOK, or, you know what I mean? That it's completely own different thing. Then we get different environments, like travel to outer space instead of being on
to
Earth.
Asgard,
go to
Wakanda, stuff like that.
Do something different than what we've already played before. How much multiplayer have you played so far?
In terms of like with friends or with people, a very limited amount. But in terms of the content that's meant to be for multiplayer, I've logged in quite a bit of hours.
Okay. How are you finding that?
Oh boy, it's very samey. Every mission is the same exact objective. It's one of three things. It's either stand here and capture that thing, destroy those three things, or hold on to these 3 points and hack in. And that's it. That is as far as the variety goes. I will say it'll come to a point when you level up your character enough and you start to unlock the end game content that it does feel like a whole branch of the game opens up, like a whole new area of the game opens up. You start unlocking these things called hives, where it's like 5 floors of objectives, and they're still the same objectives, but the fun of it comes for me from trying to 5-star them, not getting knocked down, doing some of the specific objectives to keep yourself at a 5-star rating so you can get better rewards at the end. That stuff's pretty fun to me. And then later on, they're going to add a raid type content in there. And then there's mega hives, which is that's not in yet, but it'll be added later, where it's unlimited floors, but it's as long as you can survive pretty much. And when your teammate goes down, or if you die, you switch over to I think sub in another Avenger on your roster. So that can be all really, really fun. But the problem with the multiplayer content is all the environments, especially the interior environments, are the exact same.
Yeah, I had that concern from the demo, and when we did our demo impressions, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, this is my big criticism. But hopefully when the game launches, they've got all this other stuff there, and that just didn't happen. I remember, because you get to, in the demo, in the multiplayer, you get to fight Warbot in there, and I was like, oh, this is something different than what we're playing.
Yeah.
And then when we played the full game, I was like, oh, the Warbot's in there, but then not, there isn't that much variety. I thought there was going to be 10 different types of Warbots, with different abilities and whatnot. And that in the multiplayer missions, online multiplayer missions, that we'd get different things like that. So
yeah, no, I agree. I was hoping there was going to be a little more variety. And the benefit of the doubt that everyone's always going to give this game is it's a games as a service. So a year from now, if you were to buy the game in 2021 for the first time, you're probably going to get a big bang for your buck. There will be a lot more character. Especially if you get it on a PS5, it'll look better, perform better, run better. You'll have Hawkeye. You'll have Kate Bishop. You'll probably have characters like, who knows, Doctor Strange or Captain Marvel. Spider-Man will be in the game by then. and
For
you'll have a
PS.
ton for PlayStation, right? And you'll have a ton of content to check out, a ton of different variety there. But at launch, right now, this is a game that can get old pretty quick in terms of what you're looking at. If you're still like, I'm still enjoying the game, I'm having fun with the combat. Like I said, I'm having a good time leveling up the heroes and creating builds for them. But if you're one of those like players, and this is not a bad thing, but if you're one of those people who plays games and like you judge the game with your eyes first and gameplay second, then you're going to be looking at this like there is nothing. Like this. You played through 3 areas and that's it. That's all you've seen. Everything this game has to offer. I wish at least we could go back to the area in the final mission, that rainy looking area, you know, cloudy skies. That stuff's cool.
Yeah.
At least a little more variety in that. Or even, you know, going to the same Warzone mission. If I'm jumping into that New York area, maybe I jump into it one time and it's daytime, or I jump in there and it's raining and it's cloudy. Or then you have just the generic nighttime that's available there. Something like that. That little bit of variety can add in and spice up the environments in some way, but there's just none of that. And I wonder if we can attribute that to the game kind of being rushed to release, or if it was just that there's so much content in this game that's coming that they want to give us the sample size at launch and just continue to give us new stuff as months go by. But I don't know if that's the smartest business model, but it's Avengers. Like, the game sold decently well. It's going to continue to sell decently well. It's not going to be an Anthem. Like, this game is not going to, it's not dead, you know? And they already have enough content planned that's guaranteed to be coming over the next couple of months to where, like, it's not going to stop for at least 6 months. It's not going to stop. But I just don't know if they're going to meet that years to come of content that they had initially promised. So we'll see. We'll see. I have high hopes for the future. And again, if you want to hold off on buying the game, although I don't know why if you're watching a spoiler review, if you want to avoid stuff like that. But if you're one of those people who want to know about spoilers and you're thinking about if you want to buy this game or not, my recommendation would be to just wait. This game is going to have a lot more content in the future, and it'll be way more worth your money in the future. And the good news is, at the end of the day, that all the DLC is free. You know, characters, regions, story missions, all that stuff is free. That's cool. The only caveat is that they charge you an absolute insane amount for the microtransactions.
Oh, for the customizations, the different outfits and whatnot. Yeah. So
it's bad. It's bad. There's animations, or like there's those takedowns, you know, when you can do like a special takedown on an enemy. And to get new takedowns for characters, it's 1,200 credits, which is the equivalent to $12. So I'm paying 1/6 of the game's full price for an animation.
That's crazy.
A singular animation.
That's crazy. How much are the costumes?
Brutal. $14 in the equivalent of credits. One costume, a cosmetic change to my character, is almost 2/6 of the price of the game. It's nuts. I get it. The game needs to be funded somehow for the free DLC, but
make it affordable though.
Yeah, at least somewhat affordable. Like,
no, like to me, like $5, right? If you want a new costume or whatever, $5. There you go. You buy one costume or whatever.
And I hardly can't believe, or I can't believe that this would be something that Marvel Games was okay with. Especially look at Spider-Man PS4. That's like 40 plus unlockable suits that you get for free just playing through the game and unlocking them. And you can't spend a dime on, like, I can't buy any of the tokens that get me those suits. You do the missions or the side activities in the game, and then you can buy those suits when you have enough of those different tokens from the different activities. That's it. 40 plus suits for Spider-Man in that game. Through that, there's probably going to be less for Spider-Man in Avengers, and you're going to have to pay for more of them than you would have in Spider-Man. This is most likely a Square Enix thing. And again, I don't want to harp on the game too much. It's giving us a lot of content for free. 6 months from now, I'm probably going to have Spider-Man. I'm going to have Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, all the story content that comes with them without spending a dime. You know, that's cool. Unless you're an Xbox owner. But they need to dial it back on the price of some of these microtransactions. They're a little too crazy, and I'm surprised in this climate of gaming and looking at stuff like, Star Wars Battlefront or just any game that features microtransactions, that there hasn't been that much uproar over the way that they've handled the cosmetic microtransactions in Avengers. Maybe people are just really forgiving of the idea that the content is free. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, at least for me, my deal with microtransactions, one, I do think they should be more affordable, especially when you're talking about these cosmetic changes or whatever, animations.
Yeah.
Two, my biggest thing against microtransactions is not the actual payment for whatever the hell you're doing. I just don't like microtransactions when it comes to anything that can alter and give advantage to a player against another player in multiplayer. That's my biggest gripe with, you know what I mean? Where I don't believe this has that, or does it?
Like what? Like pay to win stuff?
Yeah, that's my thing. Like when you are purchasing an item that will, like, let's say a super rare weapon, and you're buying a weapon that gives you a high advantage over someone else. That's where I don't like microtransactions.
Right, yeah. There's nothing pay to win in Marvel's Avengers. All the stuff that you get is purely cosmetic. It's just costumes or emotes or nameplates and stuff. It's nothing that actually affects the gameplay in any way. That being said, though, there are, the battle pass system that they have in the game with the challenge cards for each of the characters. There are like materials in those challenge cards that can help you upgrade some of your in-game items, and you can buy through them, but they don't give you like hundreds of them. They don't give you more than you can just go and earn super easily playing through a mission. So it's not like, again, it's not like super pay to win. Because honestly, like I could go to one of the in-game vendors right now and I can get 10 times the challenge cards worth of resources with the in-game currencies that you don't have to buy, So like I'm okay with that. And I know a lot of people as well, they have issues. I don't know if you've heard about what they're doing with the DLC, in that you have to pay 1,000 credits for the DLC challenge cards to unlock them. And that's where you get like alternate suits and stuff for the DLC characters. And so part of me is like, that is a lot, but if you play through, because all the 6 base characters, their challenge cards are free. Like you can earn all the stuff that's in there. And if you play through and get through all their challenge cards, they give you about 1,300 credits each. So if I grind enough, although it's very grindy, but if I grind it enough, I can get like 7,000-ish credits off of the 6 main characters. And that'll supply me 7 DLC characters, challenge cards. And then through the challenge cards of the DLC characters, you can earn another 1,000 credits. So you like, it seems foolproof. The only problem is that, it's a grind to get through those challenge cards. It almost like encourages you to want to buy through the passes.
Yeah. What do you think about, this is a criticism that I myself have, and I know a lot of people have, and it's just a visual thing, is that when you get new equipment and you put it in or install it on your character, there's actually no visual changes. I mean, you have obviously the different costumes you can get, which I think that those what was it, the last costumes, the epic ones, the ones right behind me, are cool looking.
Yeah,
you can get those,
yeah.
But you don't, like, if you upgrade certain equipment, nothing really happens with your character. You don't see that visual change, unlike other games.
Yeah, I wish that there was a cosmetic change to the look of your character. At least the system that I provided was like, have it so that your base costume, the iconic outfits as they call them in the game, those are the ones that cosmetically change with gear. Then if I take a skin, it's the skin over top the gear and stats that I already have, But if I want the cosmetic change of the gear itself, I just go to the base outfit for the character. And I think that could have been cool, because then you get the best of both worlds. But knowing, like, looking at Injustice 2 that had a system like that, a gear system like that, where you could head-to-toe customize your characters, from what I understand, like, each gear piece needs to individually be approved by DC before they're allowed to, like, get the go-ahead to use it. And I imagine Marvel was like, we just don't want to go through this process, man. Let's just skip that whole thing. Let the gear be like a stat thing and just put in suits. That's way easier for them, and it's way less time consuming.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
playing God of War for the first time. 'Cause,
Oh
you know,
man.
and I've never played any God of War game before. I'm playing probably. I'm guessing this is the best one, right? You know, the
Yes.
one for PS4. And yeah, it's so cool because when you want to upgrade your armor or change something, not only do you get the stat boost, you get the visual
Visual
change.
change, yeah.
Yeah,
And
as
that's
well.
gonna, you look at something like Gotham Knights coming out next year. That's same situation there. When you customize your characters with gear, it'll change the look of the characters. So that's probably a big misstep for Avengers. I'm sure that could have been a really fun system for people to customize their characters and make them all look different. But then you miss out on the opportunity of like, well, hey, if you want your characters to look different, why not get these alternate suits?
Yeah, that's crazy. $14, and it's like, yeah, you buy how many suits? 3, 4 suits. You could have bought the game for that price.
Yep.
So, what's kind of your overall thoughts and your score out of 10 for this game?
Overall thoughts, I guess, like if you put it into 3 words, is that this game is just it's room for improvement. It's not this like absolute catastrophe disaster that Anthem was at launch. There's a lot of good in here. There's even some great in Marvel's Avengers, but there's also still some bad. There's some mediocre. There's some stuff that needs work. And it being a live service game, which some people may consider it to be a detriment, could also be something that helps the game over time, that they just want to keep working on it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what more story content they want to add. I liked the story. I liked the writing. I liked the narrative in the game. The last couple, like you said, the last 3 hours of the story mode is spectacular. It's so much fun. Feels like a blockbuster movie. That final boss fight against MODOK, going to space with Iron Man to save Captain America. It's awesome. It is so much fun. Even the stuff with like the helicarrier being attacked and you're playing as Miss Marvel swinging off stuff like thousands of feet in the air. It's cool. It's really, really cool. So if you give me more of that, at least a sprinkling of more of that with the DLC heroes that are coming down the line, then I'll just keep playing. I will just keep playing. But if it's nothing in comparison to what the main story was to add to this game, then I'm really not sure. The future's uncertain for Marvel's Avengers. But if I had to give it a rating out of 10, I'd say I'd probably give it a 7.
Okay, cool.
What
Yeah,
about you?
I had
you already did your review.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think
Oh, wow.
Dorian gave a 9. Yeah, I had fun with it. Like I said, it's not it's a good solid story, good performances.
Yeah.
It's not You're not talking, top tier, storytelling experience. Yeah. And combat wise, it's fun, it's engaging, but you can mix in some button mashing with it, right? Versus like Ghost of Tsushima, you played it, right?
Yes.
Like you can't
game of
button
the
mash.
generation.
You can't button mash on that game. You know what I mean? Like you can
to a certain point. Once
a certain point
start getting introduced to the different enemy types, like you literally cannot. You have to switch stances to be able to break through shields and stuff like that.
And you got to parry, and you've got to, you got to figure out, okay, how am I going to get?
Yeah.
Where in Avengers, you can coast a good portion button mashing, and that's where that variety of combat and bosses and levels is a detriment because like you can't mix it up. So then you're not that engaged with the combat like as something like a Ghost of Tsushima is, where it's like even if Ghost of Tsushima has a lot of samey, let's say, enemies or environments, you're so engaged with the actual combat, like you have to focus on the actual combat. So, but I do think it's for $60. I think it's still worth it if you are a Marvel fan and you want to play
100%.
A Marvel game with these characters, and you do have to kind of get through the lull of the middle, but I think the ending is worth it. I mean, definitely left me with a good impression. You should always end on a good note because, like, towards the middle, I was like, oh man, kind of grinding through this thing. Like, is this going to be the rest of the game? Because if this is the rest of the game, it's not going to be good. But then they start turning it up, so I'm glad they did that. So I do think you can also wait, like you said, maybe you'll get it for a cheaper price, $50-$40 later on, and you'll get more content. But if you want to spend that, because I think the game is about 12 to 14 hours worth of content, the story mode.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth it. Plus, you tack on the multiplayer, which I hope to see improvements in the future for. So overall, I do think it's a worthwhile game. It's not going to be in my top 5 games of the year, but it was. I'm glad I played it. Let's just say that.
I agree. For
Yeah.
the most part, I agree.
Cool. All right, Caboose, where can people find you on social media, your YouTube channel, all that good stuff?
Yeah, thank you. You can check me out Twitter and Instagram at CabooseEK. You can also check me out youtube.com/Caboose, covering Marvel's Avengers, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, all sorts of superhero gaming related content.
Cool. And you guys can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero or on Instagram, Dennis.tzng. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Collider Games. Also, we have our podcast every single week. That's on the Collider Factory feed. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.